Hey everyone, Chris Carr with Freedom Home Loans. Today we're going to discuss the June 2022 monthly market report. And the main three topics we're going to discuss today: what on earth is going on with the interest rates, what is the current state of the real estate market, and where we're headed. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and welcome you to the June 2022 monthly market report. So first things first, what's going on with mortgage rates? So there's an old saying in the mortgage business: when rates go up, they take the elevator, and when rates come down, they take the stairs. We are definitely seeing a period of time here where rates are increasing. However, I also feel they're normalizing, and I'll kind of go into more context as we progress here throughout the presentation. So mortgage rates have been staying relatively flat for the past couple of months. However, in the past few days, they have peaked up just a little bit too. So Sam here, Chief Economist of Freddie Mac, mortgage rates continue to inch downward this week. This was last week, but are still significantly higher than last year, affecting affordability and purchase demand. Heading into the summer, the potential homebuyer pool has shrunk, supply is on the rise, and the housing market is normalizing. That's going to be a theme of today. The housing market is normalizing. This is welcome news following unprecedented market tightness over the last couple of years. So looking at Freddie Mac's primary mortgage survey here at the bottom of the screen, we can see the 30-year average of all mortgages, 5.23, that little orange percent there. And right below that, you can notice almost an entire point of fees included in that 5.23. So the average as of June 9th, 5.23% with almost a point in fees across the board for all of Freddie Mac's loans. You can see what the 15 and a 5-1 looks like. These are primarily on primary residential homes or primary occupied properties. But you can kind of see what's going on. The one thing to note here, as rates somewhat stabilized, in about the past 2 months since the middle of April, we have seen, however, a tick up in the past several days, putting us, I think, just north of that 5.3%. So it's been a long time since we've seen rates like this. But again, the last couple of years are not the norm. As we see what's happened since the beginning of the year, we've gone from 3% to over 5% in a matter of a few months. And we've seen a little bit of normalizing since. The good news, if you just got into the business or became a homeowner in the past 10 years, you think rates are very high. You're not used to seeing rates like you've seen. However, if we go back another 40 years or so and look at the last 5 decades, the current rate is still lower than the preceding 4 decades prior to the 2010s. Okay, so historically, we're going back to a normalized market. For almost 50 years, the 30-year mortgage rate has moved in unison with the 10-year Treasury. The average spread over that time is 1.7. Okay, so if we see what's going on recently with the 10-year Treasury, it's going up more, which is reflected in the rates going up in the past several days. So another way to look at this kind of spread, just look at where the 10-year is. The 10-year, as of a couple of weeks ago, I believe, was a 2.91. Again, that's risen just a little bit lately, is reflective in roughly that same interest rate of about a 1.7 spread. Okay, that's what that means. That spread and rate there, 1.7%. The current housing condition, okay, are we in a correction? There may be headline news out there that says, hey, we're headed towards a housing correction, a housing bubble. Let's go into a little bit of details and facts and economics to kind of bust that myth. So a correction is a decline of 10% or greater in the price, a decline in price, okay? If we look at the home price forecast for 2022, we are still expecting to see a 9% on average, 8.9% home price appreciation. Now, if we go back and look at what's happened over the past 12 months, we've seen over 20% at the major 20 city composite here, 20% in the past year. While that may decline 10%, right? That's a decline of appreciation. However, I've used this analogy before. Imagine you're on the highway, the speed limit's 60, you speed up to 120 for about 2 years, and then you slow down back to 60, right? It's going to feel like you're driving a lot slower, but in reality, you were just getting back to the normal speed limit. The housing market is at a turning point. I believe the housing market is at a turning point. We're starting to see signs of a new direction, but the ball is still a seller's court in most housing markets. We are going back into what's a normal market. The last 2 years have been unprecedented. We've never seen it before. So I believe we're heading back to a normal market. Showings over the past 2 years, so we're going to call this pre-COVID and through the pandemic. During that time as well, we saw unprecedented showings, right? The showing time was through the roof, double what it typically was. Now it's starting to decrease. This is in April, so maybe see a little bit of a decline from this point forward, at least how it's gone pretty much every year prior. So getting back to normal showing times. The pre-pandemic demand average there, we're still double what that was, but again, trending back towards normal numbers. Existing home sales, seasonally adjusted annual rate in millions. Okay, so for 2021, there were 6.1 million existing home sales. And as of April 22, we're on pace for 5.6 this year, which is still near a record high, puts us back about the mark of 2020. Okay, so still very high sales. If we go back to pre-pandemic sales, again, the average was a little bit less, 5.4 million. Okay, so we're still above pre-pandemic sales. Looking at the average days on market, the national average here, according to the National Association of Realtors, has that information pretty well kept. 17 days is still the average days on market across the country. If we look at average number of offers across the country, 5.5 is the national average per listing. That's still a seller's market. Okay. So transitioning to topic number 3, what's ahead, right? What's in the crystal ball? So mortgage rates are likely to plateau near current levels. The financial markets have attempted to price in the impact of Fed actions over this cycle, and they are likely also pricing in the economic slowdown that will result. Once we are past this rate spike and associated volatility, MBA expects that potential home buyers may be more willing to re-enter the market. So we look at the sales forecast for the entire year, somewhere in the middle there, about 6.5. So still an extremely high number of total sales volume that is being forecasted for the year. Experts don't believe the market is in a bubble or a crash is in the cards. Like during the Great Recession, not in the cards. The nation is still suffering from a housing shortage that has reached the crisis proportions at times when many millennials are reaching the age when they start to consider home ownership. That's likely to keep prices high. Okay, if we look at what the definition of a recession is, there's a lot of that talk. I've been, kind of saying that for several months here, thinking that we're in one. We'll see, I think, in a matter of weeks, if in fact we are. But the National Bureau of Economic Research defines a recession as a significant decline in the economic activity spread across the economy, lasting more than a few months. So typically a quarter of negative growth in GDP. That's typically what is used in what a recession means, negative growth in GDP. So if we are headed to a recession, what does that mean for the housing market? Well, recessions don't equal a housing crisis. If we go back to 1980, we've had 6 recessions. One, the Great Recession, was a significant drop in real estate values, nearly 20%, because that was driven by bad mortgages. Pretty much that recession was driven by the housing bubble at that time. Okay, if we go back and look where we were here versus where we are now versus where we were, we look at distressed property sales at that time, significant amount of distressed property sales. Today, still less than 1% for almost 2 years. There's just a ton of equity. Lending standards still extremely under control. The housing bubble, we were approaching 900 on the index of what a safe mortgage is, right? Underwriting guidelines, mortgage fraud, everything that would come into play to have a risky mortgage. Very, very, very loose standards in the housing bubble. Today, very strong lending standards. So if you were looking to buy a home, I would still recommend you do so, even at the higher interest rates, because we have no reason to believe that home prices will stop appreciating. Again, you're going 120 down the freeway and you slow down to 65, 70 with the speed limit 60, you're still appreciating, okay? It just feels like you're going a lot slower when you're really not. Home values going up is only a problem when you're trying to buy. When you own, it's a gift, right? So there's a lot of appreciation that's transpired over the last several years. So with all that being said, that concludes the Freedom Home Loans monthly market report for June 2022. I can stop my share here. Yeah, if you know anyone that wants some expert mortgage advice or real estate advice in general, please feel free to reach out. I've been in the business since 2009. I know a thing or two about real estate. So if you have any family, friends, or coworkers looking to buy, sell, or refi, we would love to help them out. Have a wonderful rest of the month. Thanks, everybody.